This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started. Kendall, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Brian Yonta. Dave Wegman.
Present.
Thank you. Derek Bass.
Here.
Thank you. Debbie Reed.
Here.
Thank you. Nephi Garza.
Present.
Thank you. Kara Tackett.
Present.
Thank you. Jeff Carroll. Sabrina Santiago. John Beasley. Suzanne Scott.
Present.
Thank you. Jose Reyes. Doug Snevelin for Dave Mock.
Present.
Thank you, Doug. Donovan Burton.
Here.
Thank you. Carly Rotzler. Fernando Perez.
Present.
Thank you, Fernando. Jamie McCool. Thank you, Jamie. Jared Bowen. Chris Robles.
Present.
Thank you. Nick Collins for Tressa Olson, TWDB.
Present.
Thank you, Nick. All right. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Kendall. Do we have any public comments or anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir. No one has signed up to speak.
All right, thank you. Next item, item number 3 is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on March 17th. Are there any comments? And if not, could I get a motion and a second to approve, please? Motion from Debbie to approve. Donovan, second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Item number 4 is communications from the Texas Water Development Board. Nick Collins. He's going to review the FMPs and FMEs selected that were selected to move forward in the 2026 FIF process. So Nick, please come on down or come online.
Good afternoon. I do not know if you were wanting me to share my screen or if you already have the slides. Awesome, you do. Okay, could you go back one more, please? So, just to give you an update, the board approved prioritization lists on April 10th, 2025. The first round of invitations to apply were FMEs for the top 10 plus 7 federally funded. The top 10 are specifically from without additional funding from the federal government, and then the 7 federally funded, which the TWD will also contribute to, and then the top 2 FMPs. So the steps for this are going to be invitations sent out, includes eligible FIF costs and percent grant. Just to note, the grant may not cover the full costs. The applicant themselves may need to take out a loan with the TWDB, and this will be coming from the FIF funds themselves. Step 2 is intent to apply is due by May 14th. This is not an application. This is more just to say that you are wanting to apply, you are interested in applying. And then step 3 is pre-application meeting with TWDB and applicant. And then step 4 is full application deadline is July 2nd. We will be sending out a reminder for that. Step 5 is TWDB's review. Step 6 is funding determination letters. TWDB is going to review applications and issue a notice money award. Step 7 is round 2 invitations are sent out. Number of round 2 applicants depends on workload and available funds. So whatever is not taken up in that first round will be used in the second round. And then board approve. Step 8 is board approves first round. And then step 9 is repeat funds until it runs out, like I said. Next slide, please. So here's the list of the current FMEs as they were approved by the board. These are not saying that these are going to be the list. This is just saying that these are the top 10, and then the top 2 federally, the federal funding ones. These could change if they've already been in process or in a different state right now. So if you don't see anything on there or you aren't happy with it, please do keep holding on to it because it's still there. There's a potential for it to change. And same thing with next slide, please. And same thing with F&P invitations. These are subject to change, but these are the top two that were selected by the TWDB. Next slide, please.
Hey, Nick,
And then
before,
oh,
Nick,
yes, continue.
before you go on, could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how those were selected? Because this is Region 12 and nothing went
Yeah.
forward. And I'll bust on Nueces River Authority, but they were, yeah, a whole lot.
What did they do right?
Yeah.
We would like to know.
Suzanne put it
That
nicer
is
than I would.
that is something that I do not know. This is something that's out of my purview as a regional flood planner. But if you would like, I can take down that question real quick, and I can get back to you with an email, or Tress can get back to you. I'd be happy to set up a time, and if y'all would like, we can also set up a time to talk outside of the RFPG about what went right, what went wrong. But unfortunately, I can't talk about that at this moment. But
Yeah, I will just say officially, yes, we would appreciate some follow up on that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we offer consultants that apply to the River Authority a chance for a debrief, and I think something along those lines would be beneficial, at least by region, to hear why some were selected and then what could we have done better, what were we lacking, because Dave, I think, is doing some quick math over here next to me, but there are a lot of regions that got multiple awards and nothing from Region 12 moved forward. So there's a lot of questions here, especially considering we probably have the most advanced flood mapping and modeling in the state.
And it's ironic that 5 of the top 6 are all from the same region and same sponsor. So
I will definitely make sure to notate that, and I will talk to Tressa if she would like me to have a one-on-one conversation with y'all, or if she would like us to have all a conversation. That's perfectly fine. I believe we are going to be putting out some more information about this. I know you and a lot of other regions are probably going to be wondering the exact same thing. So we do understand, and we would be more than happy to facilitate that and answer any questions.
Right. And I think, too, it's just because we want to learn from the process and because we want to do it better next time. We want to set ourselves up for more success in this next round, even round 2 of this potentially, or in, the next process. So I think it'd be informative for us to understand that. And any observations that y'all have as our consultants, and you're looking at it and how did these rank and in the whole scope of things, what did they have more complete than what we did or whatever? Just, it's lessons learned, I think, is always helpful.
Chair, if I may add, I appreciate a meeting offline to kind of discuss that as it was recommended by the water board, but I do think it needs to come to this body here once that meeting happens, so that in fact we can discuss. One of the challenges has always been, as in other regions, is getting the confidence from some of our suburban communities to participate in this effort. And so when there's going to be some questions about it, so we want to make sure and communicate a good front and learn from this process.
Yeah, thank you both, Suzanne and Nephew, for that. I agree completely. Yeah, so if you could work with Kendall offline, and we'll maybe if we could set something up for a call with the right person at the Water Development Board, and then we can follow back up after that about a larger group brief.
Yeah, of course. And I'll wait for that. But to answer those questions, there is going to be a fifth. There is currently a fifth email that will be at the end of the slideshow. If y'all have any questions, you can always send it to them. But we are getting the FME team currently set up. The manager was just recently hired, and they've been approved to hire another individual for that team. So this process is getting started right now, but I know that a lot of the questions y'all have are very specific and very nuanced in some of these on how these projects were selected, and I would be happy to set that up, and I will definitely work with Kendall on that. But can we go back one more slide? I think there was one more. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is about the 2026-2027 fifth cycle. The FMXs in approved 2023 plans will be eligible. So anything that is currently underway and anything that has been approved previously will not be eligible. So those projects that you saw previously will be taken off. So you won't be competing with them anymore. And then the FIUP release date is TBD. There is going to be a 30-day comment period beforehand, so just keep an eye out for that. We will make sure to send out a reminder. And then the FIUP may change from the 2024 to 2025, which is subject to the board approval. And I think that's it for this presentation. I do have some updates from the TWDB that aren't included in the slides if y'all have the time for that. I know I've been taking up about a couple minutes.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so on May 1st, the Future Conditions Cursory Floodplain Year 2060 final report became available on the Flood Planning Data Hub. Note that while this document reflects the completed body of work, a small number of outstanding comments are still under consideration by the TWB. Any significant updates will be noted as needed. On April 17th, that was the same thing. Sorry about that. On March 14th, the updated existing conditions cursory floodplain data set was also uploaded to the data hub. The TWB is hosting a chairs conference call on May 30th. The topic is outreach, lessons learned from cycle 1. We encourage all chairs to apply and to attend and present. It's pretty much a time for y'all to talk, see what's going well, what's not going well, where things can be improved. And this is also a time for TWB to listen and hear on where things could be improved themselves. While this is a conversation between chairs, it's also a listening time for TWDB staff. Continuing on, completed and accepted fifth category 1 reports are now available for download on our website. And then, since we're talking about this now, the board approved the prioritization list for FMEs and FMPs for the 2024 to 2025 fifth cycle. Formal applications to apply were sent out to the 17 FMEs and 2 FMPs. The next FUIP will tentative be released for public comment winter 2025-2026. And that concludes my updates, unless y'all have any questions.
All right, thanks, Nick. Any other questions or comments for Nick and the Water Development Board? Kara.
No, not for Nick directly, but Ron, has there been any communication with consultants on the fifth selection process? Do you have any input on that?
The interesting thing to note about this, it's, looking back, I think it's twofold. A couple of reasons why. Number one, we've done a lot of good things in our region, and we have a lot less structures and a lot of things in the floodplain. We have a lot more things defined. So, and we know a lot more about our flooding issues. So, Kendall, if you pull up the list again, if you look at we can go by the list. The early flood warning system, that was a basin-wide study, the entire basin. Low water crossing, the entire basin. The NBS study, the entire basin. You're going to hear, let's jump to a different one. Cameron County, master plan for Cameron and Hidalgo County, the entire thing. So, Ludovine and I went back and looked at it. When you look at the number of low water crossings that the Nueces Basin has, it's over 3,000. We have 750. When you look at the number of structures in the floodplain, we're about a third. If you look at the population, we're still less. Just because if you look at the basin, it is so much larger than ours. We didn't have as many region-wide studies looking for issues because we've identified them, right? I mean, the River Authority's done a great job with their master plans already. A lot of these are master plans, updating flood maps, things of that nature, basin wide. It's simply the scale at which they did them, and that's our lesson learned, Suzanne, right? It's how you scale these projects and how you can capture that, and that's why they had 6 up there. It wasn't because of anything more than, I think, it's kind of, they got lucky. They needed a lot more information and figure out a lot more in their basin, and they did the entire region. And through their 5th process, they've been told, can they can they do a portion of the project now versus a portion later? And the answer was, if you change it, it changes the scoring. You have to provide these projects for the entire basin. And so the basin-wide studies definitely scored better, and their basin is much larger than ours. So we've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, I'd say, Nick, maybe, one of the important things for us to understand with Water Development Board going forward is how our regions that have been proactive and have been out there in the planning process, in the studies, in the projects, frankly, Bexar County's been doing low water crossing projects for years. How do we ever get up a list and prioritized when the needs are so great, but how do we make sure that there is some amount of money being spread across all the regions in Texas?
And to add to that, I mean, I think certainly in the urban settings where, frankly, where there is funding available through other mechanisms and matches, that certainly makes a lot of sense to me. Why? But we have a lot of rural areas that don't have the same level of funding. So I hate to think that we were penalized for being further along the process than some of the other communities. So I mean, I think that chair meeting is going to be really important to hear what are some of the other communities are saying, because I mean, I see projects there from Houston. I see a lot of projects from Dallas. So
Well, and we had challenges getting some of certain communities to even apply because they were saying, why is it worth my time? This does not help that narrative.
I appreciate that. And yeah, it is. It's still a work in progress. This is still. It's always a moving process. But I will definitely highlight that. That is something that is very important, as not every region is going to be completely rural or completely urban. There is always a varying degree, and the I guess an equitable share of funds being distributed is, in the best sense, beneficial to regions when they are trying to get some of these smaller regions or smaller cities and municipalities to contribute and put forth a project. So I will definitely highlight that and make sure that Tressa knows and that the process going forward reflects that.
Chair, I do have another question. I noticed that in many of the projects, there is a federal match to that. My question is, how are we looking at federal matches? I mean, it's no secret that right now, both FEMA, the Corps, other federal agencies are being a little bit slow, if you will, with their match. If we're kind of hanging our hat on, we're gonna fund this particular project because there's a federal match. What happens when the federal match gets delayed? In comparison, or to counter that, what about projects that have local matches? Can you speak a little bit about the federal match component and why those were selected?
Yeah, so for the federal matches, I believe if you want to go to the next slide, I believe it's just specifically for FMPs. So these are specifically for flood management. These are specifically that TWDB will be doing. And with the board, I believe that their prioritization was specifically about trying to spend the most money where the most money will go to benefit. And if there's federal funds there, they also know that the federal funds plus the TWD funds will help out the most. I believe that's the idea behind it. But I can also get you an answer to that as well.
Yeah, because there are a lot of questions about federal funding. I don't know if I would say delayed, Neffy. I think paused was the term that we were told. But yes, I think as considering just the state of federal funds in general, and as that changes, because it has been changing somewhat rapidly, is an understanding of how that plays into what projects are selected or not with the uncertainty going on at the federal level. All right, any other comments or questions for Nick? All right, thank you, Nick, appreciate it. And I know in some of this you're the messenger, so thank you for listening and taking notes. All right, next item is item number 5, the chair report. Very little to report out on for this meeting. As you know, we had a vacancy for our electric generating utilities position after Doris retired. And so we only got one nomination, and therefore the executive committee did not meet to review the forms. So that is the extent of my report. It's very simple, which leads us to item number 6, which is discussion and appropriate action regarding filling the existing vacancy for the electric generating utilities interest group. So Doris retired from CPS at the end of 2024, which left us a vacancy. Juan Sandoval, who is the water quality and planning manager at CPS. He is self-nominated for the vacancy, which we definitely appreciate. He's here in person. And so before we take an action, I just wanted to give Juan a chance to come up and introduce himself and give us your quick, 1 to 2 minute bio, if you don't mind. Come on up. You got to push the button so it's red. It's already on. Thank you, Kendall.
Yes, so good afternoon. I know a couple of people already. I know Kara and Neffy. So I've been with CPS for 19 years. Before being named as as water section manager, I did mostly routing and setting up new construction lines, transmission lines, and substations for CPS. And then prior to that, I spent 12 years as a consultant. So I'm a professional geologist, here in the state of Texas. So I've done all types of environmental work, you name it, remediations, environmental site assessments, and also we've, just reviewing a bunch of the construction jobs for CPS Energy, floodplains, you name it, endangered species, stormwater plants, anything that we deal here in San Antonio, Edwards Aquifer. So, I have a lot of experience with all that. And I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Any questions of Juan?
I do.
Oh, yeah, Neffy, go ahead. Oh,
No. I want to compliment you. I was surprised to see that you're the current director of the Air and Water Management Association.
Yes, so Air and Waste Management Association. I'm current director, and I was past chair and vice chair and so forth.
All right, cool.
So
cool. I do have another question. Is CPS aware? I mean, your employer, they're aware of this nomination?
Yes. Correct.
Thank you.
And yes, I wanted to confirm that CPS is aware. Doris recommended him before she left. So Juan comes with recommendations. Any other comments or questions? Then I think, Kendall, just make sure I have it right. Motion to approve Juan to the vacant electric utilities generating position. All right, could I get a motion and a second, please?
So, second.
Suzanne motion, Kara second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Juan, welcome to the shared pain and suffering.
Thank you.
Look, we are ready. All right, next item number 7, update on the technical consultant work and the schedule. Ron, I think you're going to jump in on this and focus on outreach strategies, for the second cycle. And you take it away, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wanted to come to the planning group today and talk about one of the things that's hot and heavy on our list right now. It's the outreach and trying to get information from all of the stakeholders. So here, the first thing on the slide here is kind of a rough schedule outline of the main stakeholder outreach that we're aware of right now. And we've started the individual stakeholder outreach, where you saw we brought to you the form that we had sent out to all the stakeholders, and we're continuing that. This summer, we have to hold at least one public meeting to identify flood risk. So kind of to let you know, our task 2A has been complete. The River Authority, we have some final tweaks that we're going over with Aaron and Yasmin, and as far as final flood maps for the existing condition. And that should be wrapped up and ready to essentially present. There were some minor tweaks that it actually went out with the survey, and we've asked the entities to also identify areas that aren't identified by a flood map. So a lot of what we got last time was my backyard floods. So we're not asking for that. We're asking for the entities to look at it and say, hey, we missed something here. And we have gotten a few. I know Jeff Carroll responded. There's a part of Bernie that wasn't identified. No, his backyard's not flooding. No, that part there's a part that isn't mapped, that we were able to kind of go in and put the BLE mapping in a little farther up and capture that. So some of that's been good, but we're gonna have we're putting that out in the survey, but we have to hold one of the public meetings. So we're probably going to do that in conjunction with the planning group meeting in this summer, depending on kind of when it falls. And the idea is all of the stakeholders are going to have seen it, and I'll talk about some of the outreach we've done so far here in a second. But it's just to check the box that we've done the outreach. And then in the fall, we're going to touch back with some of the stakeholders and go area by area and really talk to them, because we know that where the rubber meets the road is identification of FMEs, FMPs, and FMSs. So we want to go through and make sure each of the entities that we have and the stakeholders are represented, and we're getting the right information. And just so you know, a lot of the individual information that we're gathering right now has to do with their flood management practices, and so we're gathering that information. We're gathering if there's any information that we don't have as far as infrastructure, we're gathering that too. But it's going. It's kind of it's slow as any of the outreach is. And I was going to let Ludovine talk a little bit more about how the process has been going on her end. She's been following up. We sent all the emails, and so we have teams from HCR half reaching out, phone call now, and so I'm going to let her talk a little more about the numbers and the conversation she's been having.
Yeah, we're deep in the weeds, but taking a step back, our methodology, I have some statistics here on this page on how we did last cycle. This is for cities and counties, so responded to surveys 7 out of the 65 flood-prone areas on the map. That's only cities and counties. I excluded the public comments, which was probably twice as much. As we had mentioned, a lot of backyard flooding, and then provided projects. We had 32 out of 65. Those were collected. A lot of master plans, and just outreach after the survey was conducted. So we are focusing this cycle on really hitting those stakeholders hard. So the cities and counties, that's who we've started reaching out to. And we're also going to have more of a focus on coordinating with the adjacent regions. Region 13 was easy last cycle because their prime is HDR, so HDR. But on Region 11, that's Freeze and Nichols, we had a meeting with them. We did last cycle, we coordinated with them, but this cycle we really said, okay, these are the stakeholders we're going to be reaching out to, make sure that we're taking care of who we've listed under our region. And then all the entities that we're reaching out to are cities, counties, and river authorities. So that is our methodology. The data that we're collecting, we're sending out an initial survey. We're setting up meetings to go through the survey. The survey is just to capture the data that we need. And the data that we're collecting is local flood infrastructure. So any kind of infrastructure that was missed in the first cycle or that's deficient and non-functional. Also, where are your critical facilities, especially if those are being flooded? That's really important with this section. And then the completed FMXs, which ones from the FMX list have been completed, but then also any other projects that were not included in the last cycle that have been completed. This is going to be important when we're trying to assess our goals completed, which we'll talk about later here in this meeting. If any FMX has been completed, how many structures, population has been now removed from the floodplain. Then flood maps and models. In our region, we have a great database of this through the River Authority, but if there's any LOMERs or CLOMERs that are not included in the D2MR, so just collecting those items. And then flood management practices and recommendations, as Ron had said, that's a big one with this outreach. And then the flood financing, how do these various stakeholders finance their projects? And then the last one is hazard mitigation and emergency planning. Who does everyone coordinate when there's an emergency?
I have a face for radio.
So how we're doing so far, we've got a check mark next to the initial contact. So we've at least through some form of email or phone or through the other regions and coordinating with them, we've made a contact with all 65 of those entities that are cities, counties, and river authorities. And then currently we are following up with calls. We find that that's just the best way, especially if emails were missed, and then setting up meetings with them. So we've got 2 meetings and there's one additional one that I did not include on here, which is Universal City. So these are meetings that are coming up in the next month. And then responses received, that's again through the survey. These are all the ones, all the stakeholders that have responded, and one additional one, which is Converse. So we're asking the Regional Flood Planning Group if you guys have any stakeholders that you coordinate with, if you can let them know to respond to the survey, or if they didn't get it, just let us know that we need them to respond. So that's through half coordination. I did put that down because I'm sure there's a meeting set up coming up with them.
Yeah, I think so they coordinated that last time because they were doing some of the amendment projects, and so not sure how they coordinated it. At this,
Since one of our members on our RPG is a city person.
yeah, no, they're one that I'm not really worried about, right? I mean, we coordinate with them regularly. It's just one that we haven't set up a meeting with, had that conversation with. We did hit, like you said, we have hit a couple more, considering that, we have meetings to come with the River Authority, with the city of San Antonio. So, I think Bandera County and the Bandera River Authority we had last time. So we have several more to add to the list. So we're happy that we're getting that. We're really pushing that information hard because the critical infrastructure, we took a lot bigger look into the critical infrastructure because of how important that scores. And so we're really trying to get that information if we don't have it already, trying to make sure we have all of the schools, all of the emergency response facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, all of that. So we're trying to do a much deeper dive, make sure, because we know how important it is to the scoring, and we're trying to get every point matters. So,
Well, I was just going to say, I think you don't wait, like push the city of San Antonio to get that meeting. They're going into budget cycle. Razi's, impending retirement. There's a lot of change, and so I think don't wait on that. It's better to get and start pushing that sooner rather than later. And then I think just to echo the, you know, please get with Kendall more often than not when it comes to where you're not getting responses from, because that, you know, we did not, it was a struggle last time with certain, you know, some of those entities, you know, Sarah has contacts, members of this group have contacts, and we can start to, it may not be who you're reaching out to, but there are others that we can help push them along, hopefully. So I think the sooner we know who's not being responsive, the better.
Chair, if I could ask a question. Based on the conversation, Ron, you and I had at the last time we met, I appreciate you doing this, but I wondered if, in fact, you have reached out to organizations like CPS or SAWS. In my time at the city, I know we had a number of situations where we talked to them about their infrastructure and the risk of flooding to their infrastructure. And I'm thinking primarily of some of the large dams that are owned by CPS. I'm thinking of some of the other large facilities by SAWS, to consider that and consider maybe even an FME, a study to consider that. I know the River Authority has been looking at their NRCS dams, which is very appropriate, but also some of these other agencies. And on top of that, the Office of Emergency Management, which is a combined organization between the city and the county and multiple suburban cities, they have a hazard mitigation plan where they identify a number of projects on that, particularly for funding through hazard mitigation from FEMA. So they'll have a list of projects, of priorities that they're looking. So I don't know if you've reached out to James Mendoza or some of those folks at the Office of Emergency Management, but that might be another area that you may want to reach out to, in addition to some of the major utilities. I think, as you eloquently mentioned to me, is that that's where we're going to get majority of the points when we start looking at those things. So consider Office of Emergency Management, obviously SAWS and CPS, and other major utilities.
Yeah, thanks, Neffy. Just to capture those real quick. The 65 are the entities that were defined by the Water Development Board as having, most of those have authority of some sort, flood management authority. So we're focusing on those because there's a lot of information we have to get there, have their infrastructure, all of this. But yes, we've Donovan and I have talked. We actually submitted an FME for SAWS through the amendment process this last time to identify. It was a master plan for their region to identify where they would have flooding issues with their facilities, be it their treatment facilities, maintenance facilities, unflooded access types of stuff. So there is an FME in the books for that. Still, we still don't know where that's going to land after the amendment, but yes, it made it through the amendment. CPS was one. We have a lot of their infrastructure already. We went through last time that there's a lot of their power poles and all of that are definitely there, but we're gonna, now that Juan's here, we're gonna set up a meeting with CPS and go through. So yes, we will focus on utilities a lot more this time. We're gonna the Bandera groundwater and River Authority, right? We met with them last time. They had a lot of cool things going on out there with their flood warning system and different things that they were able to share with us. So we have a meeting on the books scheduled to talk to them. So yeah, it's and I think the big picture of all of this is you can see we're spending a lot more time with the stakeholders and the entities, and kind of going to the public and showing them what we're doing and letting them give their responses that way. We spent a lot of time last time bringing this to the public and asking for input and got very little. And all of the majority of the information that we needed was within the stakeholders. So we're spending a lot more time in this outreach session, going to the stakeholders, spending time with them, setting up meetings, doing what we need to get that information to fill in the gaps like you talked about, Neffy.
And another suggestion too would be like, have you presented to the COG, the Alamo Area Council of Governments? Have you gone to them get on their agenda to do a presentation, let them know? Because around the table are going to be the elected officials that represent those governments, but sometimes if they hear about what's going on, they'll put the pressure down, they'll light the fire. And so and then the other COG in the area as well. I can't remember, Golden Crescent, right? That's the other one. So just that could be another opportunity, because I do think lessons learned is it is the governments that are really the people you need to target. And because you're going to have a public meeting and the individual citizens will come, which is great, but they even can't represent a project. I mean, or they don't have the database, they don't have the information. So it may be good. So just, I'm sure you're already going to the COGS, but they're a good source of,
Well, you know,
a
last time
collective.
we had something on schedule with the COG, but for some reason it never really it never worked out with their schedule to go present because their schedule had filled up, and we didn't get to actually go before them and present. Ludovic and I had this discussion 2 days ago, you know, or late last week about how we're going to get back with that contact at the COG and present with them and meet.
And Ron, and maybe that's where some of us might need to call in, because if the COG is looking at you and they're like, oh, here's a consultant coming in trying to
Yeah.
sell us something, if it's one of us, or well, not me, but one
I
of these
think
guys.
if
Not me,
Sarah,
I'm a
if
consultant.
the River Authority makes the
Yeah,
appointment,
they'll
And
or
Brian,
Dave or
and
you know, Donovan, if they see them, then it's going to be, oh, okay, then this is not, yeah, you know what
Brian Mass was assisting me with that last time, Derek. So one of the other ones is to be of note. The BRWM is working again, and they're having meetings, and SAFE with the River Authority has been taking information back. You know, he's worked with Ludovine on a couple different things to provide them information. There's even talks about us coming in and giving a presentation about where we're at. So yes, we're getting in front of people, and that's the important. As we get a little bit farther, we may start reaching out to say, you know, as we go through this process, to kind of keep track so you can see who's responded, who hasn't. We're trying not to put people on. You know, one of the things is you know, not calling people out in here, but we may send it out in individuals, or if y'all want to check in, we can, you know, give you some ideas of who we need help with, and we'll bring it back to the group because we know everybody has different contacts, and we're working with Kendall. As we go through it, we'll keep you updated.
well, and I was going to say, you know, the city of San Antonio has I always forget the name, but it's that drainage advisory board. Y'all, and I think Debbie as well, right? Yeah. I mean, is there value in getting that set up and having HDR come present and get feedback there? It's another way to hit the same message.
I think it's certainly a good idea. I think the deadlines and some of those kinds of things would be important. We have somebody that controls help us with the agenda, but certainly something that we can discuss and we can bring up. Yeah, we can help with that.
Quick question, Ron. I'm assuming that you kind of go to these meetings with a packet of information, and one of the items I think would want to know, and we want to know from the Texas Water Development Board, is about the rating and how do we get our numbers up. Do we have some kind of information about what they could do to enhance their project? And of course, I'm going to mention including nature-based solutions aspects, but why did you laugh? Anyway, I was just thinking about, do you have maybe a package that you take and making sure everybody has like the same information that would include ratings and how to get that up?
You know, right now, Debbie, what we're focused on collecting is infrastructure, areas that you have flooding concerns, flood management practices. We have a whole nother slated round. We're going to go collect FMXs and sit with everybody, and you know, once we get all the flood future and existing, and identify all the flood hazards, which will come a little bit later on. So we expect mid fall to early winter to kind of have those conversations again, just kind of get in there and start sitting with everyone and saying, okay, we've collected all the data. Now we want to talk about projects. This is what you had last time, whether it's 0 or whether it's 10, and then talk about that, and then say, hey Dave, we learned this last time, let's do this, let's draw this polygon different, let's find out why, you know, make sure we have all the information correct. So yes, the plan is to get back with all of the entities who submitted, which is a smaller list, right, and really go through their projects and help them score, and then spend time with the other entities that didn't submit. And of course, you know,
but I think it's worth, as you have this first round of meetings, which is, yes, gathering the critical infrastructure data and such, but you need to plant the seed now about, we will be coming back and we will be looking for projects and studies, because it's going to take them time to start gathering that data, and the further ahead they can get, the better. So I think I understand the primary purpose of the first round of meetings, but we've got to start planting that seed now to make sure they're postured as much as they can be when we're ready to accept that information.
And I guess just one more question, because didn't in this past go around with your meetings, you collected a lot of development codes and that sort of thing, and you felt like that everybody met a minimum? I know, it's Kara's favorite topic. Oh. So anyway, do I remember that correctly, that you did do a survey a little bit of where their development codes were and if they met the national kind of
We did.
insurance standards?
We did. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail moving forward. But yes, we did that last time, and we're collecting that again to find out number one, what do you participate in? Number two, what's your level of enforcement? And number three, what are your development regulations or
so it would be
or,
more beyond the floodplain issues.
Yes. It's definitely figuring out the enforcement and what kind of how are you and we'll get into it. How are you protecting this investment? So
which is exactly the point.
Exactly.
Protecting the investment.
All right.
So keeping going, we showed you the schedule last time. Well, I figured we, want to be able to kind of bring up the overall schedule. Right here, we highlighted task 1 through 5. Again, we're focusing on this year completing that the tech memo, which is due January 7th. Again, our goal is highlighted there in red to have that to you for approval in December. That way, Neffy can have Christmas with his family and not be reviewing memos. No? Okay, we'll talk about it there. As you can see, highlighted in yellow, we're going through public outreach now. We're going to have some more there. And so next slide, and we can get into kind of what Debbie was talking about. So Debbie, here's one of the things that we're talking about, and part of task 3A is collecting information on flood management standards and practices. And so here are the definitions. I wanted to provide y'all the definitions by the Water Development Board, by state flood plan regulations that's in there. And it's just to show you kind of whatever was strong, moderate, and low for both level of enforcement and practices. And I think it's important to know that out of the 65 regulatory entities, 2 are not part of the NFIP. One of them does not have floodplain within their limits. And it's a very, very small community. I didn't even really know it was a community. And the second is one that's has a very small floodplain getting in, but they're on top of a hill. And so they've kind of let us know they have no flooding issues as well. But and then 30 have low management practices that we defined last time. 34 require freeboard at or less than the 1 foot above the BFE, and then 2 no freeboard requirements, probably with the same no participation. All of the stats and everything is really for the one reason. The only one reason is we have the opportunity this time, and it's this was something we didn't think about last time, and I think I had mentioned it at the last meeting, was there we have the ability to limit who can participate in in the state flood plan, who can include projects. And so the idea is do we want to put some sort of a limitation, kind of like to protect our investment if we are going to build a regional flood plan, or we're going to build a detention pond or anything else. We want to make sure that it's protected, and we do that through making sure that these communities are part of the NFIP and have some sort of minimum. And I know we might not all be ready to determine what that is, but it's something food for thought that if maybe in the future, that if we want to bring that, last time we made the decision as a group that we would not be forcing anyone to say you have to meet these standards, because we didn't want to force policy as a group. However, looking back now to say, knowing what we know now, is if you're going to be part of this and you're going to have projects in the fifth plan, do we want to make sure that they meet a minimum standard? And I don't know if going to a higher standards, because not every community is ready to meet higher standards, but we might say 63 out of 65 is pretty good, and NFIP is good enough. But it's just food for thought. Haven't other regions are having this discussion, and I haven't heard anybody come out and say one way or the other, but just wanted to kind of put it up for food for thought for this region, because we pretty strongly as a group decided last time we didn't want to make anybody make policy. So we'll take any comments. It doesn't have to be today, Derek, but we'd love your feedback. I'd love your feedback. So if you want to call and talk to Ludovine and I and give us your feedback, or talk to me after the meeting or whatever, but this is something that depending on the feedback we get, we can always bring it back up to the group to have a formal vote or make a decision, and bring it. If you want us to take it further, we can bring it to the executive or the technical committee and make a recommendation. But last time we took a pretty strong stance of nothing. But
yeah, but I think it's worth revisiting, especially now that we've gone through one round and we're looking at where we landed on projects and everything else. I think the technical committee is probably a good place to start, and I think for this particular topic, just even if you could, for ease of finding it, send out to the whole group the list of all the 65 regulatory entities and where they're classified in each of those categories, because I think that would help hone in on an understanding. Sometimes it might be resources, sometimes it might be who knows what, but making somebody go from low to high might be a lot. But if it's low to moderate, understanding what it would take for them to get there, and there's cost burdens, and there's a whole variety of other things that go into that. And I know why we made that decision before, but I think it is worth revisiting. I'm happy if there's feelings the other way, but I think it's worth revisiting for the technical committee to start with.
Chair, if I could just add that I'd really like this information. It really hones in, but maybe it's just grammatical or something, but on the 30 low management practices, could we say 30 NFIP standard management or something like that? Because if I'm one of those communities, I'm going to think, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and so just
that's
I know that's a vernacular we use
yes.
to
That's
separate it,
yes.
but if I'm working with other communities and we're sharing this, to tell them, oh, by the way, you're low management. Minimum or standard.
And
we
building
can,
on what was said.
This was just for this presentation. We're not putting it out anywhere else, but and that's the way that it was classified by the board. So wanted to and some of this is, we had discussions last time. Some of this, it's a little bit, when we, I think Dave, last time we had y'all a moderate on one, and we had discussions on what it really meant between moderate and high. And, talking to Dave, sat down and said, okay, yeah, the based on the straight out definition, it might not be there, but, based on what the Bexar County was doing, we brought them up to a high level. So, we had to have those conversations, right? It's the initial screening by what it might say. And then you go through it. And then, some of them would say they have none, right? And so it was, or we didn't get a response on a lot of them. So,
Chair, I would love to have some comment on that topic about standards from the Texas Water Development Board too, especially if it would impact some of their rating systems or considerations.
Okay. I guess, Ron, through the technical channels, that's probably through the consultant channels, excuse me, that's probably, and Debbie, if you have any specific comments or questions, because I'm not sure exactly how TWDB, did they pull these from, standard, one of the groups, the national groups that I'm totally drawing a blank on, the floodplain management, TFMA,
had
and
collected a lot of this information.
That's what I'm wondering, if they're going off of standard definitions that are accepted practices, but that would be maybe just some clarification on that.
the TFMA collected NFIP, but did they collect level of enforcement? I'm trying to remember.
No, not
The level of enforcement, I'll have to ask Debbie how they classified that, and that's a question that we can ask Tressa. But yes, what we had from TFMA was the number of NFIP participants, and we were able to pull that.
So some clarification.
Some clarification. We can
Yes.
get that. And any question, Debbie, just email me or talk to me after. And yes, anytime you'll have questions, just let us know, and we can always bring that up. Okay, and the last thing I have for you, last but not least, is the goals. We're going to have to revisit the goals, and I wanted to, one of the things is we're going to bring this back to the technical committee at the next meeting here in a couple of weeks. But I wanted to bring it back to everyone because we're gonna look at it in detail. I think one of the things that you will notice that we were very aggressive last time in what we thought we could accomplish, or what we thought would be accomplished with our 10-year and 30-year short-term and long-term goals. We're 5+ years in and don't have a lot checked off. So, I think not only do we need to go back in and look at our goals, we need to think we have a lot more information than we did the first time, right? And so I think we can be more realistic about our goals and what we're seeing as what are our metrics. And so we can adjust those and then see if there's some of these goals that we don't think apply. And, I think that there's several that several of you would say that we definitely think that need to apply. So I just wanted to bring that up, that we will be looking at that in technical committee and bring a recommendation. However, I asked Kendall that we put this in so we could give it out as homework for everyone to come back, and we'd love recommendation. If you can come back before that technical committee meeting on June do you remember what it is? Did we set it? We haven't.
We didn't set it yet.
And so
yeah, I was like, wait.
Yes.
Yeah, remains the
Yes.
same for now. And if we need to revisit that, we certainly can. But yeah,
Yeah, there is no technical committee meeting scheduled.
I'm sorry,
that
Kendall.
Would be something that we do too.
Rod
I'm just
got
ready. I'm just
super
really ready,
excited.
Suzanne.
But I would echo like the concept of homework, because we have a number of folks on the board that are new, that weren't here the first time we went through this this round and how we got to goals and all of that. So whether you're on the technical committee or not, we need that feedback. So either familiarize or refamiliarize yourself, please.
So are you going to take the goals and are your team going to put where we are related to those goals right now? Because that would, it's one thing to look at the goals. You're saying we're not meeting them, which is fair. But yeah, I'd like to kind of know where we are given the goals that we set. That would be good to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. We can
send
run
that
through
out to us, sort of the goals and kind of.
Some of it was remove 30 or 70% of the structures, and we just know that that's I think we need to back off that number.
Sure.
And so, but yes,
Totally fair.
some of it may be hard to determine exactly,
Where you can.
because like we talked about last time, how do we track the goals, right?
Yeah.
And that's very
Yeah.
tough to track it. And that was one of the recommendations we brought back up to the Water Development Board
Right.
in the plan is tracking of this and who's in charge of keeping that information. And so, yes, we will revisit all of that, but we will come in here and add what.
Yeah. And I would say
how we
focusing on
think-
short term for the
Yeah.
time being.
Yeah, just some idea. And then I think it would be also helpful if in looking at other regions that set goals, are there some that you feel are best practices based on what you've seen from other regions that could be a guide? In other words, we took a stab at it, right? We were all doing this first time, but it would, is there one or two other regions that are urban? Kind of like ours that has a lot of urban center situation. Is there one or two that you think, let's look over here and see? Might as well learn from others during this process because everyone was going about it the same in the dark. So, and we are too, in effect. We're sort of making this up as we go.
Absolutely. Great comment, Suzanne.
Mhm.
I'll try to grab a couple other regions and print their goals if we can get a hold of that and highlight some of the ones that are similar.
Yeah.
And then maybe even some of the ones that we think are are different, but
Yeah, that are,
and
that are
pertinent.
good practices, but effective.
Great comment. Thank you,
Yeah.
Suzanne. With that, Mr. Chair, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Any other comments or questions for Ron?
Yes.
Yes, Debbie.
Well, looking at our goals and categories, and I think you and I touched base a little bit on this at the last meeting, is that the education and outreach, there's probably a lot of us doing some of that, but are we capturing any of it? This is a good question. And can we build on our resources between folks on this group to also be able to accomplish some of those goals without actually making them an FMX? And how do we capture that data?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that conversation is going to be had on some of these where, we're going to really look at each other and say, is that truly an FMS, or is that something that each region should truly be doing, and who should be doing that? I think that there are some of those questions because, again, some of it is hard to quantify and track and do that. And so we know a lot more about how the process is going this time. So I would think, yes, we're going to need to go through each one of the goals and determine if they're feasible and if they should stay on the list.
Okay. I think Suzanne, you had something too.
Well, it wasn't related specifically to his report. I just was going to, before you ask a legislative status question, and given the conversations that are being had regarding the water fund and the 80-20 split, and what is that? I mean, I know that there's still activities to try to modify that, but this could really impact funding available, and the process of making determinations now with this oversight committee that's going to be put together. I'm just trying to get a sense of where y'all are on this, River Authority. What have y'all been saying regarding, because it could change the whole structure of this whole process. And I'm just getting a sense of where our main governmental entities are in giving input into that process.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably as good a time as any as we're talking about planning. And Kendall and Noah, feel free to chime in with whatever you're hearing from Kai. And as things evolve, I mean, Sarah's position, and I think the Texas Water Association's position, broadly speaking, has been we need money for water, and we'll sort out the details later. The important thing is get a one-time influx, but even more important, get the annual dollars, which typically we've been pushing for $1 billion a year for 20 years, and go from there. There have been disagreements in the House and the Senate in terms of the 80-20 split. Should it go off of the Water Development Board's priority or a guideline? But we were just like, we need funding for water. Now that is typically not been flood. Now we're just saying water in general, but the intent, if you talk to most folks in Austin, I think has been water supply or drinking water infrastructure has been the priority, not flood. So that's sort of my broad statement, but Donovan, please feel free, because I know y'all are tracking this carefully.
At risk of upsetting a lot of people, no, it is.
I don't think you're going to upset anybody. I think we're being realistic about.
No,
yeah,
I know, and
yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues on the 80-20 is it going to go in the constitutional amendment or in the SB or whatever version of it? If it's in the enabling legislation, that gives more opportunities to say let's get something in place and then we can tweak it down the line. So that is a sort of a sub discussion going on, obviously within them. Perry has been very clear that it's not going to end up 80-20. He knows he's going to have to back off of that, and I think the Senate Finance he's run into a little bit of a buzzsaw there. Nobody knows if there is going to be a number, and I think most everybody is fighting for, I shouldn't say fighting, but trying to get as much flexibility as we can. So, what 12 or 13 days left in the session. I don't know where we're going to be, and by the end of it. But yes, I think, and flood is a piece of it. They got wastewater. Everybody has a million and one needs that are out there, including drinking and drinking water. So you got a lot of people in the room talking about it. I don't know where it's going to end up, but yeah, that's the question: is how much is going to be in the constitutional amendment versus in the SB.
Yeah. Kendall, did we between Donna and I, did we hit it all? Okay. Yeah, so continue to watch for the next 12, 13 days to see what happens. Yes, it absolutely could. But I think the message, whether, y'all are advocating individually or the organizations you represent are advocating, I think the message is there are, per Donovan, there are a huge amount of needs as related to water across the state. Drinking water is a big one with the growth that the state is seeing, but wastewater systems are another, flood is yet another. But, the funding needs are real, and so getting that going, whatever it looks like, is going to be, from my view, really important. We need more funding from the state that goes towards those needs. How it gets divvied out, the sausage is still getting made, and people are fighting and working through those discussions, but we need more funding, period, for water infrastructure, water broadly. All right. So with that, we'll move on to item number 8, public comments. Kendall, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir, no one has signed up to speak.
Okay. Item number 9, date and potential agenda items for our next meeting. Depending on what, the group thinks, but in particular, I'll look at Ron. Are we looking at a June or an August meeting that's probably both the technical committee, but then the full group? And do you have thoughts on that? Mike.
I think we had talked about a June technical committee meeting, kind of getting that started to keep things rolling, and then probably back in August for the full group.
Okay, which seems like it makes sense. We need to get the technical committee going. And Kendall, I will look to you for the best ways to look at potential dates for both technical in June and August for the full board. What's best to help get that nailed down?
Well, we do have a quorum of our technical committee and the planning group, either here in person or online, so we could schedule both at this time, especially the technical committee, as it's only within the next month. And so if we did want to wait to schedule August, we could do so. It would just, I don't want to try to reach you all in July to try to get your August schedules, so it could be effective to do it now. As a reminder, our technical committee is made up of our chair, Dave Wegman, Jeff Carroll, Jose Reyes, Nefi Garza, Sabrina Santiago, who is joining us online, and Suzanne Scott.
So with those groups, I think getting them set for June is important. Do y'all have thoughts, Dave in particular, as the chair of the technical?
Yeah, and I think we have everybody online except for Jeff Carroll, unless he piped in. So we should be able to go ahead and get that scheduled. I'd like a week or so to go over these goals and make commentary on that and get that to Ron before that technical committee meeting. We're already in the third week of May.
Yeah, all we really need to get together is a couple of the things that was asked for today, but we can do that. I would say we probably at least a couple weeks out to get it on schedules, but that gives us enough time. So, I mean, it tends like Wednesdays or Thursdays seem to always kind of be when these things fall, except for this one, Tuesday. So, if you say 2 weeks, anytime after the 3rd, we should be able to move. I think with posting, we would have to have it. Yeah, we can probably meet whatever, as long as it's in June.
All right, how do you guys look for the technical guys for June 12th? That's a Thursday. Is that too far out? Whatever, I'm clear all day on that day. But
This is Sabrina Santiago. I will be out of town, the 10th through the 16th. So if that needs to happen that week, I will not be available. I apologize.
let's look at the week before then.
Sure.
I got MPO on Friday, but
The week before is not good for me, so. How about the 18th?
nope. I'll be out from the 18th to the 23rd.
17th?
17 I can do.
17th, 16th, 16th, 17th?
I can do the 16th or the 17th.
I can do either one of those two.
Yeah, I was going to say generally this group has had some success on Monday or Tuesday afternoons pulling it together, but I know it's
Okay, Nephew, you can do
tough.
16
I can
afternoon?
do 16th or 17th.
Suzanne, you can do?
I can do it after 3.
On the 16th? We'll do it at 3.
Do it at 3.
Sure.
Sabrina, how about you?
3:30.
That works for me.
3:30.
3:30? Come from my meeting to you.
All right.
3:30 on the
All
16th.
Or
right.
y'all can start and I'll come late if you want to do it at 3. That's fine.
All right, 3:30 sounds good. Here, we'll just have to let Jeff Carroll know.
Yes,
Yeah,
can do.
I think the fact you got that much consensus relatively quickly, we'll take that as a win. Kendall, do you want to try to schedule August, or are we too far? Based on your experience.
I think we can do that.
Let's make it happen.
Well, I was going to say look at Tuesdays in August and maybe the afternoon of the 5th or the 12th or the 19th.
Looks really good.
August
August.
afternoon.
I can do 12.
That's for the full group, by the way, not just technical.
2, you're saying?
Or in the afternoon, but would say it's at the same time, 2 p.m.
2 o'clock.
Unless there's any major concerns. It's before school generally goes back and all that kind of stuff. Any concerns? All right, there we go. 2 p.m. on August 12th, next regional flood planning group. Is that Kara's birthday? She said, Dave, you would know the date. And so if we wanted to like try to schedule it right on her birthday.
Yeah.
We're good with that date. I'm just making a joke. All right. Any last concerns or items before we go? All right. Could I get a motion and a second to adjourn, please? Debbie, motion.
I second that.
Neffy, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We are good. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Please enjoy your summer and be safe.